Okay, this video is all about how to process a Cornish cross. I raised 25 roosters in this round. I do this twice a year. They do prefer to be raised in cooler temperatures, so if you live somewhere warm, don't do this in the dead heat of summer. They don't like that. This is my station, the plucker, the scalder, my table that has my cutting board, and the different buckets for the different parts. So one bucket is going to go for legs, one is going to be for the organs that go to the dogs, and one is going to be for the organs that go to the pigs. Absolutely no parts of these birds are wasted. We honor the birds by using all of the parts. You don't necessarily need a plucker, but if you're going to pluck your birds, whether by hand or in a plucker, you're going to need to scald them. So I use this propane tank heater in a big pot, and we'll get that heated up to 160 degrees. 160 is really the Goldilocks zone of temperatures to pluck chickens. Too hot and the skin's going to start falling apart, too cool and the feathers aren't going to come out appropriately. So starting yesterday, I pulled all the feed from my birds because you don't want them filled, you don't want their crops full, you don't want their digestive system full of feed. So I withheld feed 24 hours before I started processing day. So you'll probably want to do that too. Like I said, this takes about 20 minutes, so go ahead and get this started before you start and gather your birds up for processing. We're almost there, so it's time to get the first bird. So the first bird goes upside down into this cone. I'm not going to show that part. His head comes out the bottom. You can cut the head off. It goes into this bucket, and the bird will drain. After the bird is drained of some blood, you can take him over to your scalder. And as long as you're up to temperature at 160, we're going to put him in. I'm going to show you that in a second. Oh, to the right there is my coolers with ice. That's an essential part of this process too. Make sure you have ice and coolers because you're going to need somewhere to put these birds once you're finished with them, and a hose for your plucker. So first bird's ready. My temperature's ready. I'm going to dunk him in the water for about 15 seconds. So I'm going to count to 15 here and wait. Make sure you get him in there and all zhuzhed around. You can pull him out here in a second just to test a few of the feathers, and you'll see me doing this. I'm going to pull a few feathers from the leg to make sure they're coming out well, and if they are, he's good to go into the plucker. So straight into the plucker, and there's a little switch at the bottom, and we'll plug this, turn that on. You want to eyeball this. You don't want to leave him in long enough for it to break a leg or tear the skin, but you definitely want to get those feathers on. So we'll rinse those feathers rinse down into a bucket that I have underneath that has holes in it so it can drain and it'll still hold the feathers. So let's pull him out and see how he did. Pretty good, not bad for the first bird of the season. Tore a little bit of skin, but not too bad. Second one was pretty much perfect. So we're going to get him over to the table, and first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little cut around the neck, and I'm going to detach the esophagus and the crop from the inside of the chest. So there's connective tissue that holds that crop in attached to the side of the chest. You want to loosen that because you're actually going to pull this out the other side of the bird with the organs. And if this is still attached here, then it's going to tear. You don't want this to tear. You want it to all come out as one piece on the other end. I'm going to go ahead and cut the neck off at this part. If you hold it upright by the neck, it'll separate the vertebra. It'll be a lot easier to get your knife in there so that the neck will come off easily. Okay, so this is a super important part. We are going to pinch the skin above the vent here, and we're going to make a slit. The goal here is to make a hole big enough to put your hand in and without perforating the intestine. There's lots of bacteria in there. You don't want to spill that in the interior of the bird and on the meat that you're going to eat. So we're going to do this really carefully. Once you see the intestines there, you know you're doing it right. So we're going to reach in and we're going to pull out all of the organs. So once you pull out the heart's going to come out, and then right after that, it's going to be the esophagus and the crop. Once you get the esophagus and crop out, you know you've pulled all the major organs out. The kidneys will be attached to the backside wall, so pull those out at this point too. After you get all that out, there's the heart. And I'm reaching in to get the esophagus and the crop right there, the crop and the esophagus. We are going to leave the last part of the intestine attached. We don't want to break that at this point. We're actually going to cut that out when we cut out the vent area. So a little liquid around the heart. And so that's what we're doing right now. We're going to cut out the tail part and the vent in one piece. Normally I would do this with my poultry shears, but I couldn't find them this day, and so I'm doing this with a knife, but this is a little bit easier. So I'm going to cut through that vertebra back there in between those, and I'm going to pull out the vent and the tailbone there. All right, so organs are out. This is the liver. I'm going to pull the liver off. That's going to go to my dogs. Lots of people eat chicken liver. If you eat chicken liver, we save it for fishing too. And there is the gizzard. That's going to go to the pigs. And the heart here is going to go to my dogs. Some people eat that as well. So all of this is going to go to the pigs. So the next part, also super important. When you are cutting off the legs and the wingtips, you're not cutting through bone. You're cutting the cartilage that attaches two bones together. Much easier to cut through than bone. So if you are having a really hard time getting your relatively sharp knife through these areas, you're cutting in the wrong spot. So open up that joint. You can see where there's a space in between. Cut right through there. It should be super easy. Like I said, if it's not, you're doing it wrong. Legs we're going to dehydrate for the dogs. They also make excellent stock. So there you go. That one is all done. So they go into ice with a little salt and a little bit of water while I'm processing the rest of the birds to keep them cool and get them nice and cool before they get bagged up. And I'll do another video after this on how they get shrink wrapped. So this is what they look like when they're all shrink wrapped and ready to go into the freezer. That process is pretty easy. I'll be posting a video on that. So 25 birds, they were all around 6 pounds. This one was 6 1/4 pounds. You divide this by 454 because there's 454 grams in a pound. I dehydrated the feet this time for the dogs. It is 160 degrees for 48 hours, and they love them. They make excellent dog treats. You can also make stock out of this. I know a lot of people that swear by chicken feet stock. I have more stock. I have enough stock to last me for the next year. So these got repurposed for the dogs. Like I said, we waste nothing around here. And this is what they look like when they are all finished.